There we go. We're hot on that deal. Hot there now. Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum, located in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. You can catch us on Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Anchor Podcasts, and all the places, Spotify. I don't know where else. Well, this is old Cody here, and as always, I have my co-host with me, Mr. Rodeo Historian himself, Jimbo Snively. Hey, Jimbo. What's going on, and who do we have today?
Hey, Cody boy, it's another great day in the Osage, man. Cody, we've got another accomplished individual from Osage County. We've got Miss Elizabeth Chambers with us today. She's currently the 4-H president of Oklahoma. She travels all over Oklahoma talking on behalf of 4-H. In fact, the other day, she was asked to speak in front of the Farm Bureau Convention. And as far as I know, that's the first time in history, as long as there's been 4-H and as long as there's been Farm Bureau here in Oklahoma, that's the first time in the history that a 4-H president has addressed that Farm Bureau Convention. That's a pretty big deal.
That's a huge deal, Jimbo.
I know. And she's a 100% country girl. She's plays the guitar. She's comes from a ranching family. And she also works here at the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum. And we're just tickled to have her today. And Liz, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here today.
We're excited to have you.
Heck yeah, Liz. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it. She had to be here today anyway, Jimbo.
Right, we caught her. So are you docking her pay while she's doing this, or is she getting paid?
She's still on the payroll right now.
Well, you're a pretty nice guy.
I know. It's a pretty good deal for everybody. Pretty good deal for everybody. So you grew up around here, Liz, huh?
Yes, so I grew up on a ranch that's about 30 minutes east of Pawhuska. And so my dad runs a cow-calf operation out there, and we raise some quarter horses too.
Cool.
Do you get in on any of the breaking of the horses?
I don't ever start them, but I've rode a few colts after they've been started, and they have about 90 days on them. So it's pretty fun. I just recently started doing that, but my little sister does it quite a bit. So.
What's your favorite job on the ranch?
I really like to work calves out there. I also like to, we do AI, an AI program now, and so I really like to do that as well. It's pretty easy, fun work, and I love when we have a big crew there.
Do you drag the calves, or you got to shoot?
It kind of depends. Usually I give shots, or I'll drag calves sometimes. It just depends on the day, and usually we rotate around to where everybody kind of gets a chance to rope, and everybody gets a chance to give shots. So, right. Yeah.
You said some initials there, AI. So there's a lot of people that watch this podcast that aren't even from a ranch or out in the country. So can you tell us what that AI means?
So AI is artificial insemination. And so basically the reason that we do it is kind of to raise show calves. Part of that is to raise show calves. Part of that is just to have access to bulls that we wouldn't have access to because we don't own them. So they collect semen, and so say you have a bull, we could have access to that because we could artificially inseminate our heifers with your bull without them actually having to come in contact with each other. So it's really neat. You can get some really cool genetics into your pool, and out here in Osage County, we can have a bull that's from, Minnesota or something like that, and we can breed our cows to them just to kind of up our genetics a little bit and get some really good calves out of them. So, yeah.
Liz, tell us about your family. Well, how long have they been ranching here in Oklahoma?
So I'm a 5th generation rancher. I can't really tell you how long we've been here, but my great-grandpa Charlie, and then my grandpa, they've both been ranching out here for as long as I can remember, and before my dad was even a thought. And my Papa, he worked on the Canes Ranch whenever my dad was little. And so my dad has worked for Canes all of his life. And then whenever he got older and started a family, he started to ranch a little bit on his own as well. So he works for Canes and also has his own cow-calf operation. So.
I remember when your grandpa roped steers a little bit, in our steer roping club.
No kidding, Jimbo.
Yeah, he did.
Well, it gets in your blood over here in Osage County.
Yeah.
You're going to end up roping steers in one form or another anyway. I remember her dad was the president of the Osage County Cattlemen's right here.
Yeah.
What all responsibilities come with being the president of the Osage County Cattlemen's? I know that you were around it and you guys were living it every day. I know it's more of a lifestyle than a job even, probably.
Yes, yeah. So his main job was just to represent the cattlemen of Osage County. But at the time, we actually put on the Ben Johnson steer roping. And that was a really cool experience. The year that he ran it, Tough Cooper came. And I remember Tough Cooper came up to me at the steer roping because he asked my dad, he said, "Is there anything I can do for you? This is a great roping. I'm glad to be here." And he's like, "Well, you go meet my daughter because she's a big fan of yours." So Tough Cooper came up and shook my hand. I got to talk to him for a couple of minutes, but that was a really cool experience. So we put on that roping, and then of course the Cattlemen's Convention was in June, and we were running around helping with that. And my mom always decorates for the convention luncheon, and so I always go help her with that as well. So it was a really fun experience. It was cool, and it was kind of cool to see my dad step up into that role of leadership and watch him just do a good job of representing cattlemen in Osage County.
Sounds like a whole family of leaders to me.
Well, now she's the president of the 4-H right here.
I know.
Her mom's always holding a position of some kind in an association somewhere.
About. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's something that I think that might be in the water that we produce around here. Some great leaders and some great spokesmen for our way of life around here, Jimbo. So.
For sure. How long have you been in 4-H?
So I've been in 4-H for about 9 years now, but my older sister was in 4-H before I was, so I've really been in 4-H a lot longer than 9 years.
Right.
But,
what does the 4-H's stand for?
So they stand for Head, Heart, Hands, and Health. And so it's the equal training of all of those 4 parts. And then there's a 5th H that's kind of hidden, and it's called the home. So.
Hadn't heard that one.
The head. I need the most help with that part.
5H doesn't roll off your tongue like 4-H.
Yes.
No, there's not. What is there? Five clover out there? It's just 4-leaf clover. That's the one.
That's the main one everybody wants.
Yes. Yep.
So before we go into this 4-H business real quick, I'm going to step right back to this AI we were talking about just a second ago. I haven't done all the research I need to on this, but it's just a little side note before we go any further. I think that the process of AI was perfected right here in Osage County out at the Cotting Ranch through Oklahoma State University, I believe.
It probably was. I know I went out there when I was in high school, and they gave a little demonstration and stuff, and it was cutting edge technology at that time.
I'm pretty sure that it was. It may not have been invented here, but it was perfected the way they do it now, right here in Osage County, and it's all the buildings and everything stand right out there on. I believe the Drummonds own that piece of property now, but it's called the Cotting Ranch, and it's really, really something else. It's really a story. I've heard multiple stories on it, so we're going to have to do a special podcast just on that one of these days, Jimbo.
Yeah, who would we get that was part of that? I wonder.
Well, the professor that was over it, I think, has reached out to us. So
really?
We're going to have to go back and do one of those. It's just an interesting side note.
It is.
The process.
It was really a neat facility. They had a little airport out there, and it was just really cool.
Had its own airport even.
Yeah.
Wow.
Where they could fly that semen in and out.
4-H's. All 4-H's. The head. Is that the one you said first?
Yes, yeah.
Tell us about it. What does that mean?
So
that part of the 4-H.
This is actually, it's one of my favorite H's. So there's kind of a process of learning in 4-H. So you learn, do, and teach. And I think Head, Heart, Hands, and Health kind of walk you along that track to learn. And so I think 4-H builds leaders to use their heads in any kind of situation. And it's really neat to see some of the leadership programs that they've got going in 4-H, because it really teaches them, how can I use my skills to help others, or how can I use my skills to help other people help me to help others. So it's really neat. They have a lot of STEM programs in Oklahoma 4-H, and
what kind of programs? I don't. It's embarrassing to say I never was part of 4-H, Jimbo.
Right.
I didn't show cattle, anything. I roped cattle and fed cattle.
You were roping them.
Yeah.
And showing them. You showed them after you tied them.
Yeah. I was showing them my hands in there.
Yeah, so there's project areas anywhere from robotics to STEM to healthy living to leadership to civic engagement to anything in ag that you can think of. There's over 60 project areas in Oklahoma 4-H alone, and in other states they offer different project areas, and it just kind of depends on what the state needs at the time. So there's a lot of programs that we don't have that other states do have, and there's a lot of programs that we have that other states don't have yet. And so an example of that is our Food Fund 4-H program, and basically each month a family will get a box of family meal plans and things like that, and like fun activities that your family can go through. And it's just something that Oklahoma 4-H came up with, and now other states, people from all over are requesting for their 4-H program to do that in their state. So it's really neat because we've kind of paved the way in that aspect. And so it's neat to see some of our programs being requested by other people because they think it's a really neat thing that we're doing over here. So,
out of all the programs in 4-H, what's your favorite part of 4-H?
Oh man, that's really hard. I would probably say, well, I'll tell you what my project areas are. My project areas are beef, leadership, and performing arts. And so I really love the performing arts project area. It's given me so many opportunities. It's the reason that I'm in leadership in 4-H. It's how I got started and all of that. When I originally joined 4-H, like I said, my older sister, she started showing cattle before I was even old enough to be in 4-H. And I thought that's all I was joining 4-H for, to go do, is to show cattle. And then it kind of evolved. I figured out that I had this love for music and performing, and I figured out that 4-H had that avenue for me to go in. And then through that, I found all of my leadership stuff that I now do. And so it's been really neat, but performing arts is probably my favorite.
The second H.
Yes.
We talked about the head.
Yes, the heart.
The heart. Tell us about the heart part of the 4-H.
So something that I love about the 4-H program is that it teaches its members to be compassionate to everybody. Everybody is involved in everything. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter where you come from, how you grew up. Everybody's allowed in 4-H, whether you're from an urban community or you're from a rural community. You can find anything in 4-H that you would like to do. And I have met some of my lifelong friends in 4-H, and it just gives kids the opportunity to meet people outside of their school, because a lot of times schools are hard to make friends in if you don't necessarily connect with those people. And so it gives people the opportunity to meet people from all over the state with the exact same interests and things that they like to do. And also people who are homeschooled like I am, it gave me the opportunity to make tons of friends. And so a lot of people, that's one of the number one questions I get as a homeschooler, is how do I get socialization? And I always kind of giggle at that answer because nobody would ever guess that I'm homeschooled. But I always say it's because of 4-H. And I just think that that heart aspect of the 4-H is really teaches its members to, be compassionate and to make friends and to have fun. So
My girls are homeschooled too, Jimbo. But I told them I'm the only friend they're ever going to need is their old daddy.
Right.
But they got more friends than we can count.
Yeah.
It's a slumber party about 4 nights a week at our house because certain kids are. We always got kids staying the night. It's the craziest thing because they know that.
I know. I've had kids too. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they know that they got it made in the shade. You know how early I had to get up for school?
6:30.
Somewhere in that area. They get up 9:30.
Right.
Whenever they feel like it.
Right.
It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, we had to get up early to catch the school bus because it's way out there, and they'd pick us up about 7 if I remember right, and so had to get around early.
Well, we're learning them real good in that homeschool, Jimbo. We're learning them up real good. Luckily, I'm the principal.
Right.
I ain't charged of teaching them anything.
Right. Yeah. Lauren does a pretty good job of that, I bet.
Oh, yeah. I get in trouble right along with them. It's the craziest thing. All she does is scold 2 kids and me all day, every day. Third H.
Okay, head, heart, hands, and health.
Hands.
So hands.
What do you teach them? How to use their hands?
Yeah, so like I said, there's that 3-step process. So it teaches its members lots of things, but then once you've learned everything that you need to know, which there's always room to learn more, but it encourages its members to teach other people and to do things with other people. So I'm going to use my performing arts project as an example. So I started a music club here in Osage County that was up and going before COVID, and I need to get it started back up again, but life has been crazy since I've gotten this new leadership position. But I found a whole bunch of people in Osage County that had a love for performing arts but couldn't necessarily do it on a district or state level like I could. So I decided that I was going to start a music club. So about twice a month we would have a meeting and everybody would bring a song, and we'd have what's called a song circle. And this song circle, we would just help each other with songs, or if we need somebody else to have that they played an instrument maybe that we couldn't play, we're like, hey, come join us on this song. And it was almost like a big band. And so then we would all of my music club members and I would go to 4-H camps locally or some outside of the county even, and teach workshops on how to play, simple ukulele chords or simple percussion patterns or something like that. So I let them do the things and get really good at doing their instrument or singing or just performing, and then we went out and taught people. So I think that's kind of how 4-H uses that hands aspect to help 4-H members to do the things that they're good at and also teach others about that as well.
Where do you get your love for music? Most kids that like music, they get it from one or both their parents. Were either one of your parents music?
Actually, neither one of my parents are musically inclined at all. My mom used to sing in like a choir setting. My dad has no interest in music at all. But my grandpa Charlie, he sings and plays the guitar, and he also does like cowboy poems, and he's phenomenal. I always love listening to him. And since I was a little girl, we used to always sing You Are My Sunshine. He would sing it to me whenever I was little, and then whenever I learned it, we would sing it together. And just recently I went over to, whenever he was in the hospital, I brought my guitar over and we sang that while he was in the hospital. And it was a really cool thing for us. But that's where I got it. And then also my mama's grandma Isla, which is her grandma, so my great grandma.
I knew her.
She sang in the Catholic Church for many years and then moved over to a Bartlesville Catholic Church. But she had a beautiful soprano voice, and almost all of my mom's family is musically inclined like that. So I think I get it from lots of avenues. And even though my parents aren't necessarily musically inclined, they've always loved music. And I didn't really even discover that I had a kind of a gift for it until I was in 4-H. And it just kind of developed and it took off. And now I love to do it every day, so.
Yeah, she sings the national anthem everywhere, all over the state at big events, Jimbo. Hey, did you know I'm a expert in a musical instrument? If you ever need someone to come to one of your music school class deals to show a few chords, I'm actually bona fide expert, card-carrying expert in a musical instrument.
I know what it is, too.
What do you think it might be?
Triangle.
Triangle, you know, Jimbo. I'm real good at triangle, so if you need any hints or tips on triangling, I'm real good at it. One of the best.
You could add a little beat, you know?
Yeah, I'm a great triangler. I got my triangling name is Dinner Bell. So that's what they call me. Most of the albums I've been on, that's what I'm under, is Dinner Bell on the triangle right there.
Right.
So
does that pay anything on those albums?
Yeah, I get royalties from them, all kind of stuff.
Cool.
I'm big on the triangle circuit, Jimbo. It's in my blood, man.
Yeah.
It's the only instrument I've really mastered, though.
I haven't mastered any, so you're better than me.
I'll show you a few things on the triangle one of these days.
Okay.
So
like it.
I do have a funny story that you'd appreciate from a music club in 4-H. So there's a state program called Oklahoma 4-H Music Corps, and one of the kind of leaders of it, his name is John Holman, and he loves to find weird instruments that are made out of weird things. One time, he found a guitar that was made out of a toilet seat.
Oh, yeah.
And
the old toilet seat guitar.
He finds instruments like that all the time, and he introduced me into the ukulele, I think is what it's called. It's like a ukulele guitar. So it sounds like a ukulele, but it's got 6 strings like a guitar. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. But he finds the weirdest instruments and will go and play them for people. And he's really good at the river cane flute. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You know who's one of the best toilet seat guitar players out there? One of the Baldknobber family out there in Branson. They got they come waltzing out on stage with the toilet seat guitar.
Wow, I've never seen that.
Oh, yeah. Baldknobbers in Branson, toilet seat guitar, playing champion right there.
I'm surprised they didn't get you to play the triangle.
I'm surprised, too. I'm surprised I ain't got a whole triangle show in Branson, to be honest with you.
Oh, Cody.
Triangling. Yeah. All right. 4th H.
Yes.
Number 4.
Health.
What do you guys do to promote health?
So
what all's involved in the health part of this deal?
Yeah, so it's actually the health aspect of Oklahoma 4-H. It has to do a lot directly with like the Healthy Living 4-H project, but they also have like the food science area and everything like that. And Food Fund 4-H, which I mentioned earlier, kind of fits into that. And part of Food Fund 4-H is they have like activity plans, and it promotes all aspects of health, so mental, physical, and like family health. It's really cool because we have a lot of programs. We actually have Healthy Living Ambassadors here in Oklahoma 4-H, which I don't think a lot of other 4-H programs have in their states.
What's that mean?
Basically, they go out and they will teach healthy living workshops. So if it has to do with food, a lot of people will teach like yoga workshops and things like that, which I attended once and I fell asleep during the last part of it because it was so relaxing. But they have really cool workshops and stuff like that. So Healthy Living Ambassadors, that's what they get to go out and do, is just teach workshops on how to have a healthy lifestyle and how to carry that into their homes. And so not only are these kids soaking in all of that information, but they have material to go back and kind of continue that with their family. And it just creates a really good environment for 4-H families.
How do you get to be president of 4-H?
So, it was a long journey, I will tell you that. So I started out on a local office, which was the Bowring 4-H Club, and my mom was the leader of that 4-H club. And I always was vice president because my older sister would always get elected. I'd run against her every year, and she'd always get elected. And then I moved up to a county level, and I would say county level is pretty typical. A lot of people kind of like to stay on that county level. And then I went to YAA, which is Youth in Action, and that's our District 4-H camp. And I met a ton of mentors. One of those mentors was Audrey Ochsner. And at the time, Audrey Ochsner was a state ambassador and a district officer. And so I met her, and she actually looks like she could be my sister. Like, we look very similar. And if you've seen a picture of my other 2 sisters, they don't look anything like me. They're both tall brunettes, and I am obviously not that. And so I met Audrey. She's a short blonde like I am, and we look very similar. And so we kind of just became friends, and then I heard about all of her leadership roles in 4-H. And she's like, you have a really great like leadership personality. Why don't you ever consider running for like a district office or something like that? And I kind of entertained the idea. And that year, my older sister was running for district office, and she didn't win because my older sister's very introverted. And so she was kind of nervous about the whole deal. And so, which she was okay with. She learned more from running than even if she had gotten the office. So, but I had saw her do that, and I was like, I think I can do that. And so the next year, I ran for Northeast District Song Leader. And I got up and I did this. There's a repeat song that you can do with crowds, and it's Little Red Wagon. And so I will say, "You can't ride in my little red wagon," and they all call it back to me. Well, there's a talent competition right after speeches. So I had done that song in my speech and had them kind of come back and forth with me and play that game with me. And then in my talent competition, I sang Little Red Wagon. And so everybody knew me as a Little Red Wagon girl. And so before people would go to the polls, they'd stop me and be like, "I know you did the Little Red Wagon thing, but what's your name so I can vote for you?" And so that's kind of how I got started. And from then on, I just started deciding that I was going to go to a state level because I saw the impact that 4-H was making in its communities, and I wanted to do everything I could do to give 4-Hers the opportunity to expand their community service projects and their project areas so that they could help even more communities and make a bigger impact. And so from then on, I decided I wanted to be a state ambassador. And state ambassador, you have to submit an application, and then you either do or you don't get an interview, and I got called for an interview. And so when you show up to selection day, you have an interview, and then you have a 3-minute extemporaneous speech about 4-H, and then you have a 4-H thank you note. And the thank you notes have to follow a certain formula, and the ambassador program, I got selected that day, and I learned very quickly the ambassador program is a lot of hard work, and you have to turn in monthly reports, and you have to either do one of the 3 aspects of the ambassador program. So you can either make 4-H more visible, you can tell the 4-H story, or you can work with donor and alumni. And so each month I have to complete one of those things. So actually today I was working on writing thank you notes to some donors that we have. And so that's what I've been doing this month. And so I got selected for that. And through that program, I met a lot of the state officer team, and I ran for Northeast District Representative to the State Council. So that was kind of my introduction to State Council. And I fell in love with being on the State Council because I could see that I could, travel all over the state and talk to all these 4-H members and help them with community service projects and all of their just normal projects and teach workshops and things like that. And so I ran for Oklahoma 4-H Song Leader. Well, I guess it's called Recreational Leader on a state level, but I ran for that and I got elected for that. And my job was to be in charge of the Spirit Committee. And so I was in charge of the Spirit Competition, which is what we have at 4-H Roundup, which is our state 4-H camp. And it was a really fun job. I got to basically just hype everyone up and get everybody excited. And so part of the Spirit competition is our community service projects. So that's one aspect of it. So whoever turns in the most money for our state service projects and the most pull tabs for our state service projects would win half of the points for the Spirit competition. And then there was sidewalk chalk and a district chant and a district service video. And so I was in charge of that, and this year was the Centennial Roundup. And so we were coming out of 2020 kind of shooken up, I guess. We didn't really know what was going to happen because we shut down for so long, and 4-H continued through the shutdown. I mean, we just converted everything to virtual, and we just did our very best to give 4-H members the opportunities to still be active. And so I decided I had a leader in 4-H come to me. He emailed me privately and asked me, "Are you running for president?" And I guess that was kind of the first time that I had really considered it, because it was somebody that I didn't really expect to kind of come to me and say that. And I actually think I sent back, I don't really think I will. And right after that, more and more people started asking me, are you running for president? Are you running for president? And I just had this feeling that I needed to at least run. I didn't know if I would get the office. I didn't know if I was qualified enough for the office, and I was really nervous. And so I was like, well, I'll just submit my application, see how this goes. And so we started getting closer to roundup where they announce it. And we're going over our scripts for the last day because I'm a state officer at the time. And they start like going over that last part where they announce who's winning and things like that. And obviously in our script ahead of time, we can't find that out. So it's like they've got like Daffy Duck in place of whoever won, you know what I mean? And so my heart is pumping so fast. And my friend Maddie Murphy, who's my best friend, she lives on a ranch that's in Scheidler. And she got involved in 4-H 2 years ago and started being on leadership councils and stuff with me. And she's one of my very best friends. And she was running for recreation leader, and there was nobody running against her. And so she was really nervous for me too. So that last day, she got called up on stage as recreation leader, and they announced my name. I immediately started to cry, and Maddie jumped up and down, ran across the stage, and hugged me for like 2 minutes. It was like the best moment of my life. I did not expect it at all. And then right following that, I just started getting invited to every event I could think of. But looking back on my 4-H career, I mean, even a year ago, if you would have told me I would have been president, I would have probably told you that you were crazy, and there's no way. But it's been a really, really neat experience. And I can't believe that 4-H has taken me where it has. It's actually incredible. I can't put it into words, really.
Wow. Quite a story.
Who's some of the people you got to meet that you wouldn't have met otherwise probably if it wasn't for 4-H?
Yes, yeah.
Who's some of those people?
So I met the parliamentarian for the Capitol. He was really cool. I met him at Oklahoma Farm Bureau Convention. And I talked to him a little bit about paging at the Capitol, and that's something I am looking forward to doing within the next year because one of my kind of career goals, I guess, I'm going to college to get an agriculture communications degree, and then maybe going on to law school to get a degree in that, and then hopefully I can specialize in ag law and write bills for the Capitol and things like that. That way I can be a representative for agriculture in our state because it's such a huge part of what we do out here. So I met him and talked to him a little bit about paging at the Capitol. I've met the OCA president and I'm going to go shadow for them next year as well and kind of see what they do in the Capitol. Because they have a really big impact on some of the laws for agriculture and just advocating for ranchers and farmers in Oklahoma. So,
how nervous were you when you had to speak in front of the Farm Bureau convention?
I was really nervous. It's an intimidating room to walk in. I don't know if you've ever been in that convention center, but everything's like red and gold. And I walked in there, I was like, oh my goodness. I did not know what to do, but I got up there and right as my speech began, I asked how many 4-H members I had in the room, and I was shocked because I would say there was only a quarter of the room that hadn't been in 4-H. Almost every single person that I saw had their hand raised, and they were all really familiar with the 4-H program, so I instantly felt comfortable because I was like, oh, these are my people. They understand what we do and why we do it, and so it was really neat. It was a 10-minute long speech, which was the longest speech I've ever given in front of a stage like that, and it was really intimidating, but they were all very nice. They actually gave me a basket to go home with, and they had Valley View pecans. And what's funny about the Valley View pecans is my 4-H advisor for the ambassador program, his name is Josh Grunman. He owns that company, Valley View Pecans. So I was like, what a full circle moment for me.
There went my next question. Do you say pecan or pecan?
It's pecan.
Or pecan?
It's pecan around here.
Pecan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
That was the next question. So, what about, is there a national platform you can eventually go to in this 4-H if you want to?
Yes, I could be on a council for National 4-H. I think as of right now, I'm not really looking to do something like that because I really want to focus on the duty that I have right now and doing that to the best of my ability. But maybe in college or something like that, I'll get on one of those councils, and they're less of like a 4-H president thing and like stuff like that. There's more like a promotional council, for instance, and so that's something I've kind of looked into, but not really considered that heavily. I need to talk to some more people about it before I really just dive feet first into that. But there has been some people in Oklahoma 4-H that have been on national councils and things like that, and I'm going to ask them what they think about that. And I just got elected in July, so I'm still kind of figuring out the whole presidency thing. But I imagine later on, once we get closer to next summer and I'm kind of finishing up my role, I'll look into more national 4-H and things like that. So.
Have you ever thought about politics?
I've actually had a lot of people talk to me about that. That's partly why I want to work in the Capitol. I don't know if I'll ever run for anything, but I do want to be able to have some part in agriculture in the Capitol and making sure that laws protect that. I'm also really passionate about homeschooling because I've been homeschooled since 3rd grade, and making sure laws protect that as well, because I think it's a really great thing that we have here in Oklahoma. And I think it's great that our Capitol protects our right to homeschool. I do see myself being in the Capitol someday, but I don't know if I'll be a representative or in the Senate or something like that. But
It should be a natural, don't you?
It's going to be real interesting to go back and watch this podcast in 10 years,
when
Jimbo.
she's president or something.
Who knows?
Vice president.
Real exciting. She's got a real exciting future.
Right, absolutely.
It's going to be real interesting to go back and watch this in 10 years.
I think this podcast will age well.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
The hidden 5-H.
the 5-H, the home.
That you touched on earlier.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about that with Oklahoma Farm Bureau. 4-H members kind of get this a lot, and even people that just 4-H families, we tend to kind of band together. And if you meet a 4-H'er, I've met 4-H'ers from all over, and I can almost find anything in common with a 4-H'er. I mean, we just tend to have the same values. It's just like one big happy family. A lot of kids, unfortunately, don't have the opportunity to have a great family home life, and 4-H is the opportunity for them to have a great family. And I think that is something that's so valuable for 4-H, and why a lot of kids are so drawn to it. It's because they can build that family. There's so many great mentors in 4-H. There's so many great leaders and volunteers that help with 4-H that really create an environment where we can be the best that we can be and help our communities. And they set such a great example. There's so many people like Kathy Allen and Kathleen Taylor that I work with all the time I look up to them so much. They're adults that have made such a big impact in not only my life, but the life of so many other people. And I don't even think sometimes these adults, they're so amazing, but I don't even think they realize how great they are and how much of an impact they make. And Kathy Allen's husband was actually the person that I was talking about earlier that emailed me about being 4-H president. And I don't even think he realized that he was the very first person. And I will remember that forever. He was the first person to ever say that to me and to kind of inspire me to do that. So I really, and like Steve Beck and Milford Jenkins, who they've done so much for the 4-H program. And it's great to look up to those people because they're kind of behind the scenes. A lot of people just see us 4-H'ers, which is great, but I think we need to have like an appreciation day for all of them because they pour their whole lives into the 4-H program and creating that home environment for a lot of kids who either don't have access to that or want to build to that family. So it's really great.
Just helping some people out is probably more than anything than they'll ever want. Just the way it makes you feel
Oh, yeah.
to help some people out like that. So
Sure it does.
you don't have to have a appreciation day every day that those people are doing that. They're really appreciating it. I can guarantee you that.
For sure.
Yes, yeah.
If you're buying a steer, the butcher, what do you look for in a market steer?
In a market steer. Oh my. Well, I would look for the fattest one, obviously.
Yes.
You want the biggest, you want the most pounds of product. So whenever you go to one of those 4-H sales, that's where I would go to get one, so you can support the youth of Oklahoma. Don't just go to some sale barn. Go to those local county shows and get your market steers.
So what is that? What is the local county shows? I didn't grow up doing it. I do help out. I do the auctioneering with their heart up for an auctioneer over here. But tell us about showing some cattle real quick, or just animal showing in general, because it's something that I don't know that much about, but anybody, it seems like, can get involved in it. I see kids that live in town out there, and I said, don't you live in town? And it seems like 4-H, they find a way for a lot of these kids to be able to show an animal if they want to.
Yes, yeah.
So tell us about showing animals, just for a minute.
See, so my dad started showing whenever he was younger, and he started off showing pigs and then moved to cattle. And I've only ever showed cattle and horses. But you can show anything. I mean, I know people that have showed rabbits, chickens, sheep, goats, pigs. I mean, anything you can think of, pretty much, they've shown it. And so at your county show, you're probably going to see sheep, goats, pigs, and cattle. And that's typically what's at your county show. Now, at a county fair, you're probably going to see more than that. But basically, I guess the best way to describe it is these kids, I mean, they raise up. So I have a steer, for instance, this year. I'll feed him. I got him earlier this summer. I'll feed him until March, when our county show is. And there will be a judge that comes in, and he'll pick basically the best show calf that's out there. So all of these kids that have raised these show calves come to one place, and they'll be sorted into different classes based on weight or breed or something like that. And the judge will pick what he thinks is the best looking one out there. And then we have a premium auction or a market steer auction after that. The kids that participate in the premium auction typically are bringing their steers to OIE or a bigger show afterwards, and that's why they're just for premium, and they're not actually, you're not buying the meat whenever you buy somebody's premium. But we've always had steers in the county show for as long as I can remember, and I've been showing for as long as I've been in 4-H. So I've had a lot of show steers over the years. I have 2 this year. I've had 2 almost every year that I've shown, I think. So
What's it take to get one of those ready from the time you decide that's my steer till showtime? Because you said you feed them.
yes, yeah.
Boy, howdy, it seems like there's a lot more to it than just feeding them.
So you have to halter break them to lead. That's a process. I don't know if you've ever halter broke a steer before, but it is.
Well, you kind of do it when you rope them. They learn to lead when you rope them enough. So
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of a tough process. You want to make sure you have gloves on, because they'll probably give you rope burn at some point.
well, they're really not a domestic animal.
No.
No.
And sometimes you'll get one that's just wild that you just can't show. We've had a few of those. But yeah, so you break them to lead, and you work with them quite a bit. And my favorite part is working hair. A lot of people don't realize that we do this that aren't in ag, but we work hair, and what that is, we wash them and rinse them and blow dry them and put products in their hair to make it as long as possible. That way, if they have any flaws, we can kind of cover up with their hair, or if they have any good parts, we clip that off at the end of the year with like what you would use on your hair, like a set of clippers. And you'll shave those good parts down to where you can see those, and then you'll kind of cover up the bad parts of that steer to make him look as good as possible. And then when you get to the county show, once you've got them all clipped up and pretty, a lot of people will use adhesives in their hair. So basically like glue or hairspray. It's kind of a stronger form of hairspray.
Sounds like a beauty contest.
Yes, it is. It's a beauty contest for cows. And you'll fluff out their legs to make their legs look real big. It's kind of ridiculous. Some people will glue extensions into their hair. It's crazy.
How hard?
You know,
Go ahead.
some people can actually take that to the next level and do it for a living. My best friend from high school, grade school, he flies all over the country now, and all he does is prepare cattle for cattle shows at the show, not ahead of time. They fly him in for the show, whether it's in Fort Worth or Denver or wherever the big show might be, and that's what he does for his primary living. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. I was just going to ask her how hard it is to sell them and say goodbye to them after you've done all that.
Oh, it's pretty hard.
I bet it is.
If I like them a lot, then I'll probably cry. But there's been a few that I'm like, I won't miss you.
Yeah, one that burnt your hands, and was jumping around there.
There's been a few that I've had that kind of have an attitude, and we don't get along too well.
Right.
So.
Good to see you. Good riddance to them. But I bet, they got those big brown eyes, that's hard. A pig, now I can see getting rid of your pig, but you could, I'd have trouble not getting attached to a big old steer.
Well, that's what sale night, usually after I sell them, I'll pet on him, and then I'll leave, and I won't look at him again. I can't handle it if I really like him, which the one that I had last year, he was the cutest one I've had. He was a peach-colored steer. He's a really nice steer, and I liked him a lot. And so it was really hard to say goodbye to him. And so I just kind of pet on him, and then I left the show, and they load him on a truck, so I don't have to get rid of him or anything like that.
But that's another lesson that you're learning, too.
Yes,
that teaches kids that you have to say goodbye to them, when you're growing them out for a purpose, not to be a pet.
Yes, yeah. Well, and I think it teaches kids that there's an industry for all of that,
right.
and it teaches them the ins and outs of that industry and the importance of it, and showing steers isn't, it's not typical, but not every cow has a life like that, and so it is kind of comforting to know they've literally been pampered their whole life, and so
it's almost like Kobe beef, almost.
Yeah, and that's what, and so they've lived a really, really pampered life, and they've had a really good life, and so while it's hard to say goodbye, sometimes it's good. It's a good learning experience for sure. So yeah.
Be hard though. I don't know if I can do it or not.
Well, Jimbo, you got anything else for Liz today?
Well, just thank her for coming in, and she was already here. She didn't have to come in, did she? Well,
she had to come back here.
Thanks for coming back here. But just what an impressive young lady, and it just gives you confidence in the young people of today, and where the future is bright in rural America at least.
That's right. I feel real good about this, Jimbo. I feel really good when I meet a young person like this.
Absolutely.
And I feel good about our future leadership when I meet a young person like this. So,
absolutely.
And I'm going to be an old man here one of these days, and I'm going to need people like this looking after my best interests. So I think she's going to do a good job.
She may be in Washington, D.C. looking after our best interests. Who knows?
Yep. Washington's what we call it over at my house, Washington.
Yeah.
We're not all as well spoken as you, Jimbo.
Well, I don't want to get mixed up with that bunch out there out west.
Hey, I didn't even bring up how do you like working over here at the museum, Liz?
Oh, it's so fun. I love this job. I love to talk to people. I was talking to some people today about bison, actually.
I noticed she says bison, I say buffalo.
Right.
Yeah.
She's very, very, very correct on her terminology. So,
right.
So I've been set straight a few times. So why do you say bison and I say buffalo?
So I was telling them, because that's what they were asking me about. So here's how it's been explained to me. So there's the North American bison, and that's what you have in the front of the museum. And then there's buffalo, which are like water buffalo or something like that that's kind of overseas. It's foreign to here. So whenever people, came over from those other countries, they just saw our bison and they were like, we're going to call this buffalo because they closely resemble what we have over here. And so the terms kind of used interchangeably. It's kind of like a moth and a butterfly. They're pretty similar, not really the same thing. They have different names, but if you see one, and you don't really know what it is, you can call it either name and it's pretty much fine. So.
Well, I grew up calling them buffalo, and I know they're not buffalo. I know they're not a true buffalo, but it's just hard to get used to that bison.
Yeah.
Just not near as a majestic a name, bison, compared
right.
Buffalo runs.
Yeah.
It just comes off the tongue real
Yeah,
nice.
it rolls off the tongue. You're right.
Bison,
Right.
something like bison, you know.
Right.
Bye,
Yeah.
son.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah,
told my boy the other day.
It doesn't make sense.
But anyway, it's not like tomato. Two totally different things, bison, buffalo.
Right, I know it. You know.
I'm learning something new every day, Jimbo. Every day of my life. But, you know, all this history we have around here. Did you know we had so many successful cowboys and cowgirls and ranchers and different things from around here? Have you ever sat and just thought about it? How many of the truly great people in history, the Western way of life, were all from this area?
Well, that's what I knew we had a lot here because my mom, since she's homeschooled us, my mom is like the queen of useless facts. And so she knows everything about everything. And so from whenever I was really young, she told me about a lot of these people that we had here in Osage County. But I think the museum has taught me more, and just since I've been working here, than I've ever known in my whole life. But what's really cool is I did not realize how many of these people I knew that are just everyday to me. I mean, you think about...
We take it for granted around here.
Exactly. I mean, I know so many people. I mean, I know Reed Drummond personally. I went to school with Todd, you know. And so it's kind of funny because all these people come in here and they're like, do you know Reed Drummond? And I'm like, yeah, I do. She's pretty nice, you know.
Nicest lady.
I know, right?
Hardworking folks.
Well, and she's actually kind of introverted. I don't think a lot of people know that about her, but she's kind of quiet. I've always known her as pretty quiet, but it's just kind of funny because things that were so everyday to me, now I'm learning about them in the museum, and people will ask me about them and they're like, so you know that person? And I'm like, yeah, I do. So it's been really fun to work here, and it's always cool when they kind of quiz me on who all I know, because I can tell them all these people, and they're like, how do you know these people? I'm like, well, they live here. It's hard to miss them in such a small town, you know. So
I had a lady one time, I was kind of giving a tour here, and before she left, she said, have you ever shook Ben Johnson's hand? I said, yeah. And she said, which hand? I said, this one. And she rubbed my hand. Some things we take for granted, you know, or just people are just in awe of, you know.
yeah.
Well, Liz, thank you for coming in today, coming back here today. Coming in, we're glad you came to work today so we could do this for sure.
Yeah, thank
She's
you
been
for
pretty
having
busy
me.
traveling the state, fixing to start traveling the country on the behalf of Oklahoma.
Right.
Well, you know, we're so proud that you speak for our state in this 4-H right now, but we know you're going to be speaking for us in a much larger stage one of these days, and we're just proud to know you, and we know you're going to do the right thing by everybody, Liz. So.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so. I would do my best for sure.
Yeah. Long-standing family. I know they're all proud of her, proud of everything she does, and she has a great support system here. And that
Absolutely.
It really takes that too.
Yeah, she comes from a good family. I went to school. Went to Catholic school with all the Spencer kids.
Yes.
So I knew every one of them.
Yep.
Well, all right, everybody. Until next week, this has been Cowboys of the Osage podcast, and make sure to share it, like it, all that fun stuff, and help us keep putting these things out. See everybody's next week right here from the Cowboys of the Osage podcast. See y'all.